We now have a revised timetable for the elections which has been released. Presidential elections scheduled for the 9th of April, but the gubernatorial elections respectively for the 2nd and the 16th of April. Why are the elections being conducted in this way, where the presidential poll seems to be ahead of the state elections?
Well, as you may be aware, this is about the first time that the National Assembly, which is responsible for making laws that will govern the election, will get specific on the, setting up of timetable of which election should come first. In the previous Electoral Act, the National Electoral Commission was given the powers to not only fix the dates of elections, but also to determine the pattern which the elections were going to hold. And I think the idea here, without holding brief for the National Assembly, is that the National Assembly, or the national elections are concluded first before you move to the state elections. The first election that is going to hold, according to the timetable, is the National Assembly election that is made up of the Senate and House of Representatives on the 2nd of April, then followed by the presidential election on the 9th of April, and then subsequent elections, gubernatorial and state House of Assembly will follow, as you know. Now, the implication of that is that it shows clearly that there has been a pattern that elections in this country has taken in the past, whereby presidents we have seen determining that the presidential election comes first, so that immediately that is concluded, all other elections that will follow subsequently will be at the peril of who really emerged as the president. But I think the wisdom of the National Assembly this time around is to ensure that that monopoly to some extent is broken, and you have the national legislature elected first, and then followed by the presidency, and then the governorship, and then the state houses of assembly elections will follow. From the tradition, it clearly shows that the kind of intervention that incumbents apparently made were greatly responsible for the poor conduct of elections in 2003 and 2007. And we hope that if this is conducted now in this manner, such a manipulation may not necessarily rear its ugly head. All right, let's move this conversation forward. Obviously, the focus now is on the upcoming primary elections within the respective political parties. To what extent does the Electoral Commission have a say or monitor how these party elections are conducted? Well, there are rules and regulations also governing party primary elections. The electoral law this time around, as signed by the President, has clearly stated how Independent National Electoral Commission is to superintend, to supervise over free, fair, and credible conduct of party primaries. There are a lot of other areas, for instance, a very critical area that previously used to confer undue advantage on people in executive position. By having their appointed officials such as ministers, ambassadors, chairmen of boards and parastatals serving as delegates, to the extent that a president goes to a party convention or party primaries with at least 50% of the delegates. The National Assembly, in its wisdom this time around, has removed that. So every aspirant is at the liberty to challenge an incumbent and will go to the convention where candidates will be elected on a relatively level playing ground. So I think that's okay. And of course, the laws are very specific on what areas of intervention the Independent National Electoral Commission should really enforce, the statute. In the event that a political party decides to do otherwise, INEC will be in perhaps a position to say, no, we are not accepting this candidate because the process that produced him or her in the first place was not in consonance with the provision of the law. Okay, Professor, there's been a lot of controversy in Nigeria recently about the so-called zoning laws or zoning processes, a system in which candidates are sifted and decided who is eligible to contest from which region. What are the guidelines for candidates that want to contest any of the elections, be it presidential or the gubernatorial or the parliamentary elections? Well, the issue of zoning in Nigerian politics is not a constitutional matter. It is not unconstitutional. It's not a provision in the Constitution. And at the same time, it's not an illegality. It was a contraption by the political parties in order to perhaps address the very dining problems of, national question that almost tore the nation apart, especially emerging from the annulment of the 1993 presidential election, where a Southerner won the presidency. Previously, before that time, there's never been any Nigerian of Southern extraction that had won, election into the presidency. And as a result of the dominant economic power by the Southerners, as well as, the high level of literacy, as well as, propaganda machine that is located within the Lagos-Ibadan press, they coerced the political establishment from the northern part of the country, who obviously enjoy the advantage of population and number, to accept the idea of zoning. And it became automatically a principle that was either consciously or unconsciously shared by most of the political parties. And I think it is on the basis of that that the People's Democratic Party won elections in 1999. It won in 2003. And what happened in 2007 was also following that initial agreement that the president who was leaving office ensured that a Nigerian of northern extraction belonging to his party was the candidate for that election. And as we all know, it's now a matter of history. The president was, President Yaradua is no more, and therefore automatically the Constitution provides that in the event of death, incapacitation, resignation, or impeachment from office, the vice president shall immediately be sworn in or take over as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Professor,
now, this is the crisis.
Let's move the conversation along. The campaigns will begin in earnest in the month of December, and of course all elections then will be evaluated on the basis of how these campaigns were conducted, in terms of how often each candidate had access to the media, who advertised most in the media, what sort of funding is at their disposal, the quality of the debates that the various candidates enter into. What are your expectations for the campaign period, and what sort of rules and guidelines govern this particular element of the election?
Well, you see, in Nigeria, one of the issues at stake is that we have always had very fantastic laws on paper. But the practicability or the applicability of these laws, to the practicality of the situation has been what is the problem. We have a problem of incumbency factor here. A lot of people that are incumbents tend to manipulate the process. They manipulate the public opinion machinery. They use state resources. They use a lot of other coercive apparatus of the, Nigerian state, the police, the state security service, and even the military, ensuring that they force their way into power. So I do expect that what we should look forward to in the coming election, or in the campaigns for the coming election, is that candidates must be able to talk on the basis of ideas and the basis of what they have to offer to the Nigerian people, beyond the issue of zoning, beyond the issue of, incumbency advantage. One of the major undoing of our political system is the inability to put in place substantial institutions that will guarantee or that will, take precedence over the individual actors. Still in Nigerian politics, the role of individual actors seem to be much more, permeating than the role that institutions are supposed to play. And in this case, therefore, the individual actors have a great role to play, and how much they are able to accumulate resources, and how much they are able to dip their hands in public treasury and use such benefits to advance their causes, to a large extent will determine their acceptability in the media, because you have to pay for whatever press, coverage you are going to get. You have to hire aircrafts, as we see some presidential aspirants do, move across the country. All this require a lot of money. And there are laws within the Electoral Act that have made it clear that every aspirant is not expected to expend beyond a certain limit of resources in the search or in his quest to be elected into any particular position.
Professor
but I
Mato,
doubt if the
Professor Mato, has there been resolution of issues around the voters' roll? I mean, although the president has allocated funding for this particular process of registering voters, it's been very, very challenging in terms of getting the equipment out on time, training the various staff, and just, preparing for this mammoth task of registering 70 million voters.
Yeah. Well, I think the Independent National Electoral Commission, which has tremendous confidence of Nigerians is in the process of getting these things ready. I understand that the contracts are being awarded to very eligible companies, and in the next few weeks, delivery will be taken of these machineries, and then the commission will go ahead and hire people who will now train those who are going to administer these machines in the 120,000 polling units we have in this country, so that the process of registration shouldn't ordinarily take more than a week or two when every eligible voter is registered, and then the process of collating this information for the purposes of producing a final voter register will be put in place. Yes, the resources are available. Yes, I don't think that the problem ahead is as easy as it's looking, but I also equally believe that the capacity and then the tremendous confidence that people have on the leadership of the Independent National Electoral Commission today will certainly lead the nation out of its political wars. Another major issue, which to me is critical, is perhaps the political establishment itself. The political parties and the politicians must be willing also to play the game by the rules, as well as the citizenry. The citizenry must realize that they have the capacity to determine who goes in and who comes out. Right. If Nigerians don't register in their numbers, if Nigerians don't participate in the election in their numbers, if Nigerians don't insist that the votes that they cast on the day of election must count, then the entire process will be a nullity. And therefore, the Independent National Electoral Commission, no matter the level of credibility of the membership, will not be able to be in the 36 states of this federation, in the more than 120,000 polling units, to ensure that honesty, transparency, and credibility is attached to the electoral process.
And finally, and very briefly, please, a brief answer. Security is a major threat at the moment. Bombings on Independence Day, continued attacks in the Niger Delta. What are the authorities doing to make sure that the entire electoral process, from the campaign period up until the very last vote is cast, is safe for everybody?
Well, I don't think if really that is merely the responsibility of the authority. I think that's merely and squarely in the hands of the Nigerian people to insist that they want to have a free, fair, and credible elections. We have seen in various parts of Africa and the world over that it is the citizenry. Yes, all the government needs to do is to ensure that it does not intervene unnecessarily in the electoral process. But then it is the responsibility of the citizenry to ensure that they force the politician to respect their views and their aspirations. Unless that is done, then we will still be in the same trouble and the same problems that we are emerging from. The crisis in the Niger Delta seems to be continuing. It's a very serious political problem, and it cannot be addressed through this ad hoc approach. It has to be comprehensively addressed through constructive engagement with the people of the Niger Delta region, not undermining, of course, the essentiality of the state as the central actor and then the independent arbiter in this matter. And unless if that is done, I think we're going to continue to have the crisis in the Niger Delta area, and then we may not eventually realize a kind of credible elections that virtually every Nigerian will wish. Nigeria is like Ghana. We have an election where possibly if the citizens are unhappy with the government that is in power, it is peacefully removed, and we have a quiet transition, and we see an opposition party assuming leadership position.
Okay,
that's basically what Nigerians are asking for.
We should leave it. Thank you very much to you, Professor Kabir Mato.
Thank you very much.
Who is joining us from our studios in Abuja.